In this lesson, we're going to be breaking apart logos for animation. Okay, so I have this logo and we're going to be working with several different logos throughout this course, but I want to first show you the step that we're going to need to take for all of those to break them apart so they can be used for animation later. So a lot of times when you're going to do a logo animation, you'll be given something like this from your client, or you've made something like this and you have an idea about the way that you want to animate it, and that's going to be a little bit difficult if everything is kind of all on one layer and all connected. So let's learn how we can break these pieces apart so they're going to be easier to use once we get them into After Effects. Okay, so I'm going to go into my layers panel over here. And you can see that I've got this path for the circle, and I've also got the group for the text and the logo mark right there. So I need to ungroup that first. First things first, the text and this little piece here, I'm definitely not going to want those together. I'm going to want more control over this piece from the title. Okay, so I'll just hit Control Shift G to ungroup that, and you can see that now if I click away and then choose it again, the text is one group and this is one group. Now you may not have a group, you may have had that as a compound path if it's the logo that you receive, so you may have to play around a little bit with figuring out how to get everything individualized. So for a moment I'm going to ignore the text, so we can turn that off. In fact, we could even ignore this path here. But if I do, then this is going to be on a white background. So let's turn it black just so that we can see it. I'm just coming over here and toggling those fill and strokes. And then I'll turn, make sure the stroke is in front and turn it to none. So now that's going to be black, and I can turn off the visibility of that path. So now I'm just working with our little poppy mark. So kind of what I want to happen is once we get this into After Effects, I want these leaves to start kind of curled in and unfurl, and then I want these stems to grow and then the flowers to kind of pop out of the tops. So knowing all of that, I need to have individual control of the leaves as one part, of each stem, and of each flower. So that's going to require us to use our Pathfinder, and also maybe even delve into the shape tool a little bit so you can kind of see how the shape builder tool can give you some similar results, maybe different, and then you can find the way that you like to break logos apart the best. Okay, so let's come over here and grab our pen tool. Now what I want to do is create a shape that's going to basically hold the inside of one of these flowers and cross over where the flower attaches to the stem that I'm wanting for it to grow from out of the stem. So I'm going to hold Alt and use my wheel to zoom in. You can see how that works. And basically, I think this place right here is a good spot for that. So what I want to do is just left click a couple of times and kind of make a nice smooth little path there. And then I'll just draw the rest of the shape really rough, does not have to be nice, and close that. Now this area over here looks like it might have gotten onto the bud, so that's perfectly fine. We can grab our anchor point tool, click, and pull that handle down so that is not interfering with our flower. So you can see I've got this shape and also this shape, and this is the shape that I want to take apart. So what I'll do is I'll just left click and drag to select both the logo and the shape we drew, and then I'll get my Pathfinder out. So I don't have that as part of the Essentials tool set up, so let's go over to Window and choose Pathfinder, and that'll open up the Pathfinder panel. It'll also open up Align and Transform. Normally I don't really use Transform, but I love Align and Pathfinder. So what you can do is just just left click this whole panel, drag it over here till you see that little blue highlight, and just pop it over there in your tools here on the side. And then if you decide you don't want one of them, you can drag it out like the Transform and X out of that. Okay, so Pathfinder, that's it right here. And I have both of my layers selected. And let's just try this mode first, the minus front. And you can see what happened was it took away the whole bud. It cut it in the place that I wanted it to, but it didn't really give me what I wanted as far as still having the bud and just having the cut there. So minus front isn't what you want to do if you still want to preserve part of your original. So I'm going to hit Control Z to undo that. And let's actually come down to the Pathfinders instead of the shape modes, and I'm going to choose divide. So when I click that, basically what happens is nothing gets deleted. We just simply have made cuts where paths cross. So then what I can do is just deselect, and you can almost kind of see a very faint little outline around that flower. And what I'll do is select my really jagged, ugly shape that I made, and then double click it to go into isolation mode, then click it one more time to select, and you can see it's got this piece out here selected, and then I'll just hit delete to get rid of it. And now I can come back out of isolation mode, and I've got this piece right here. Now this is still going to be a group. So if I come over here, you can see this is considered a group. But you can also see that if I open up that group, I've got a path and then the rest of my flowers, and you can see that that doesn't have that bud there anymore. Now I can even move this around if I decide I want to ungroup this. So if I select the group, hit Control Shift G, now I can grab that bud and move it around wherever I want. Now I want it to stay in place, but I just want to have that individual access over the bud. So let's quickly duplicate this process for a couple of the other flowers. I'll just come in, grab my pen tool, decide where I want to make the cut. And I can actually hold Alt to break that anchor handle, and then I don't have to go back and fix it later on. So you can see how that might save you a little bit of time. And then I'll just toggle back over to my selection tool right here. You can also hit the V key just to quickly shortcut over to that. So have your shape selected, Shift select everything else, or just this piece right here, really. And then we'll want to come over and choose our Divide Pathfinder again. Then double click that piece that we used to make the cut and use backspace to delete it. Okay, and then you can hit Control Shift G again to have individual access. Now let's come down here. This one's going to be a little bit more tricky. So I'm going to grab my pen tool, and basically what I want is a way that I can get these stems isolated from the leaves. So this is almost a little bit of a twofold process in that I want the leaves and I want the stems. So I'm going to choose the leaves first. I'll hit the V key to switch back over to my selection tool. Then I'll select my logo. Make sure I shift select so I have both the shape I drew and this selected. I'll hit divide, which is going to be this one right here. And then I'll double click to select that shape and delete it. Now I want you to pay attention to what happened. This time I'll just ungroup them just like before. We'll hit Control Shift G to ungroup. I can grab those leaves and pull them down. So that's a great way to also have these stems now as their own pieces. We've kind of got these weird pieces in here which were part of the group, but I can just shift select them and delete them. And then you may need to come in here and clean up a little bit. I can come over, grab my delete anchor point tool and get rid of any points that seem off. But for the most part, now we've got our stems isolated as well as our leaf. And then the only one we have left to do is this last bud right here. Really, really quickly, just finish that off. And there you go. And then we'll ungroup it, Control-Shift-G. And now we have all the buds, all the stems, and the leaves. And then you can just move that back up into place and you're good to go. Now I want to select all of those and switch them back over to that white color I had before. And I can come back over to my layers panel and turn back everything that I had the visibility off for. Now it looks no different, but we've got this amazing control now over each of these pieces. So let's come back in the next lesson and we're going to talk about one more thing you have to do before you bring this logo into After Effects. And it's just going to save you time. It's actually not something you absolutely have to do, but it's really the best and fastest way for you to get this into After Effects and then have control over each of these pieces. So stick around and we'll learn how to separate a logo onto different layers for the After Effects import.